At 7 a.m., a mother walked downstairs and felt the world tilt sideways. The back door was wide open. Cold air flooded the kitchen. Two chairs were stacked against the fence like a silent confession. And in that instant, before she even reached the bedroom, Jessica Nunez already knew something was terribly wrong. Her 14-year-old daughter was gone. Not asleep. Not hiding. Gone. What happened next changed everything. Upstairs, Alicia's room was empty. Her bed untouched. Her desk light off. No struggle. No broken window. Just absence. And that's where things got darker. On the desk sat a handwritten note, short and chilling. I ran away. I will be back, I swear. I'm sorry. 14 years old. 5 days before her birthday. And somehow, she had walked into the night alone. But what they didn't know was that Alicia was uniquely vulnerable. She had high-functioning autism. Routine was her anchor. Medications were essential. Change overwhelmed her. And yet she had left without chargers, without supplies, without any plan to survive long-term. Which meant one terrifying thing. Someone else had a plan for her. Police were called. A missing child report became a race against time. Hours passed, then days. And with every hour, the risk grew. Alicia wasn't a rebellious runaway. She was a child who trusted too easily. A child who found safety online. And this is where the case took a turn. Investigators began looking not outside the home, but inside Alicia's digital life. Gaming chats, private messages, online forums, places where predators hide in plain sight. Somewhere in those conversations, police believed Alicia was groomed, convinced, controlled. And as dawn turned to night again, one question haunted everyone involved. If Alicia promised she would come back, what stopped her? By mid-morning, police flooded the house. But there were no screams, no broken locks, no blood. The scene was disturbingly clean. Alicia hadn't been killed there. She had walked out willingly. And that realization shifted the entire investigation. What happened next changed everything. Detectives cataloged what was missing. A laptop, a cell phone, body spray, makeup, a comic book, personal items chosen with intention. But the chargers were still plugged into the wall. Her medication untouched. And that's where things got darker. A child planning a permanent escape doesn't forget survival. Someone had convinced her she wouldn't need it. But what they didn't know yet was how deep Alicia's online world really went. Investigators pulled internet records and discovered hours spent gaming late into the night. Minecraft servers, Discord chats, private messages erased just before she left. And this is where the case took a turn. Those weren't random conversations. They were structured, consistent, personal. Friends described Alicia as shy in person, but confident online. She talked more, shared more, trusted more, and predators thrive on that. Police believed Alicia was groomed slowly, methodically, by someone who studied her routines, her fears, her needs. Someone who knew exactly when to tell her to leave. Meanwhile, her mother replayed the last day again and again. McDonald's, eyebrow threading, chocolate shop, laughter. Nothing felt like a goodbye. Alicia hadn't just run away. She had been extracted. And somewhere out there, someone knew exactly where she was. For days after Alicia left, the first real lead surfaced. A friend told police she had seen Alicia alive at La Pradera Park, less than 2 miles from home. The detail electrified investigators. What happened next changed everything. Witnesses described a girl matching Alicia's height, hair, and clothing. She wasn't alone. She was speaking calmly with an adult man. And that's where things got darker. The man was described as African American, covered in tattoos across his hands, neck, and face. He didn't look lost. He looked comfortable. But what they didn't know was whether this meeting was accidental or arranged. Detectives rushed to the park. Jessica Nunez followed behind, searching benches, bathrooms, trash cans, anything her daughter might have touched. She hoped for proof Alicia was alive. Instead, she found fear. More witnesses came forward. The same description, same man, same girl, same location. And this is where the case took a turn. Alicia wasn't hiding. She was meeting someone publicly, in daylight, without fear. That meant trust. And trust meant grooming. Police released a composite sketch. Tips poured in, then dried up. No license plates. No surveillance footage. No name. The man vanished as quickly as Alicia had. And that silence screamed intention. Days passed. Then weeks. Alicia never logged back into her accounts. Her phone never pinged again. And investigators faced a terrifying conclusion. Whatever happened after that park meeting happened fast. Jessica replayed the image in her mind endlessly. Her child standing next to a stranger. Close enough to touch. Close enough to be taken. And the most chilling question remained unanswered. If Alicia walked into that park freely, why did she never walk out? Because somewhere between those trees, daylight ended, control began, and a predator stepped fully into Alicia's life, without witnesses or mercy. Search teams expanded outward as hope collapsed inward. Flyers covered light poles, grocery boards, bus stops. Alicia's face stared back from every corner, frozen at 14. What happened next changed everything. Police retraced timelines minute by minute. Cameras near the neighborhood showed nothing useful. Transit records offered no hits. And that's where things got darker. Whoever guided Alicia knew how to avoid detection. But what they didn't know was how fractured the investigation became. Tips contradicted each other. Sightings placed her miles apart within hours. Each lead burned resources, then evaporated. And this is where the case took a turn. The FBI joined quietly, digging into digital trails that local officers couldn't reach. Servers were subpoenaed. Accounts requested. Logs reviewed. Still, Alicia's online presence stopped the moment she left home. A hard stop. No goodbye messages. No panic posts. Just silence. Meanwhile, school desks stayed empty. Friends whispered. Teachers cried. Yet every morning, Jessica still checked the door, half believing Alicia would walk back in and say she was sorry. She held on to the promise in that note. But the truth was more disturbing. Promises don't survive predators. Somewhere beyond the search radius, Alicia's life was being rewritten. By the second year, the search entered its most dangerous phase. Silence. No sightings. No messages. No proof of life. And that's where things got darker. When time stretches without answers, hope doesn't fade loudly. It suffocates quietly. Investigators re-examined everything. The note, the park sighting, the missing chargers, the abrupt digital blackout. But what they didn't know was whether Alicia was still in Arizona or had been moved far beyond it within hours. And this is where the case took a turn. Cold case protocols activated. Alicia's face aged digitally. Progression images showed who she might look like now. Taller, older, changed. Those images hurt the most. They forced everyone to imagine birthdays missed, routines broken, medication forgotten. Meanwhile, online predators rarely leave fingerprints. Accounts disappear. Usernames change. IP addresses jump countries. The trail Alicia followed dissolved behind her. And what happened next changed everything. Investigators began to believe Alicia never intended to stay gone long. She believed she was visiting, meeting, being cared for. Jessica spoke publicly for the first time. Her voice cracked as she warned parents about online grooming, about predators who don't kidnap by force, but by trust. And that's where things got darker. Because grooming leaves no bruises, just obedience. Years passed. Leads dried. Alicia's name slowly vanished from headlines. But inside the house, nothing moved. Her room stayed untouched. Clothes folded. Desk exactly how she left it. A shrine to waiting. But what they didn't know was that Alicia was still alive. Controlled. Hidden in plain sight. Living a life investigators never imagined. And somewhere far away, a man was watching the world forget her, believing he had won. Years passed without movement. Then suddenly, everything shifted. In July 2023, an 18-year-old woman walked into a small Montana police department and calmly asked to be removed from the missing persons list. Her name was Alicia Navarro. What happened next changed everything. Officers stared, stunned. She was alive. Older. Quiet. But something was wrong. She didn't arrive alone. Nearby was a 36-year-old man who claimed to be her boyfriend. And that's where things got darker. Investigators separated them immediately. Alicia's story felt rehearsed. Controlled. She said she left willingly. That she was safe. But what they didn't know was what her silence concealed. Police noticed the man hovering, listening, interrupting. A search warrant followed. When officers entered the apartment they shared, they saw the man trying to hide a cell phone in the trash. And this is where the case took a turn. Digital forensics exposed child sexual abuse material on the device. Images. Videos. Evidence too disturbing to dismiss. The man was arrested. Alicia was removed from his control. Suddenly, the past snapped into focus. The grooming. The park. The note. The missing chargers. All of it pointed to long-term manipulation. But what happened next changed everything again. Alicia revealed she had been living under rules. Isolation, dependence, fear. Years stolen quietly, without chains. Her mother was notified. After nearly 4 years of waiting, hope and horror collided. Alicia was alive, but profoundly changed. And as handcuffs closed around the man's wrists, one truth became undeniable. Alicia didn't run away. She was taken and held. And the investigation wasn't over. Questions multiplied. Who helped him? How many warnings were missed? What systems failed her? The arrest answered survival, but not justice. The trial would expose how easily a child was erased, while the world looked away for years without consequence or accountability anywhere. Shockwaves followed the arrest, but clarity did not. Alicia Navarro was alive, yet the mystery deepened immediately. Investigators shifted from search to damage assessment, asking how a child could be held for years without detection. What happened next changed everything. Records showed Alicia had crossed state lines repeatedly, blending into ordinary neighborhoods. She attended no school. She saw no doctors. And that's where things got darker. Control replaced care, isolation replaced choice, and dependence replaced childhood. But what they didn't know was how early the grooming began. Digital analysts rebuilt deleted chats, tracing patterns of reassurance, secrecy, and gradual separation from family. And this is where the case took a turn. The relationship wasn't spontaneous. It was engineered. Detectives interviewed Alicia carefully, trauma-informed, patient. Her answers were measured, guarded, loyal. Loyalty is common in coercive bonds. She minimized harm. She protected him. And that terrified professionals more than anger ever could. Meanwhile, prosecutors widened the net. Devices were seized. Cloud accounts requested. Timelines mapped. And what happened next changed everything again. The evidence suggested long-term possession of abusive material, not an isolated lapse. Public reaction split instantly. Some questioned consent. Others demanded accountability. And that's where things got darker. Consent cannot exist where manipulation begins in childhood. Jessica waded through it all, learning that survival doesn't equal safety. Reunions don't erase damage. Years stolen cannot be returned. But what they didn't know was how resilient Alicia could be once distance replaced control. As hearings approached, the case reframed itself. This wasn't about a runaway found. It was about a system that failed to protect a vulnerable child. And the final question loomed heavier than ever. If Alicia could be hidden for years in plain sight, how many others still are? Waiting, watching, hoping, fearing, until truth forces action from silence. Prosecutors moved fast, because delay protects predators. Charges were prepared quietly, while investigators dissected every device, message, and movement tied to Edmund Davis. Police traced how Alicia was kept dependent, financially, emotionally, psychologically controlled. And that's where things got darker. But what they didn't know was how many near misses existed. Landlords asked questions, neighbors noticed age gaps, yet no one called. And this is where the case took a turn. Digital timelines revealed years-long patterns of coercion, not romance. Messages discouraged independence, framed isolation as love. What happened next changed everything. Forensic experts confirmed the seized phone contained child sexual abuse material. Not accidental, not fleeting, repeated, categorized, saved. The arrest escalated to felony charges, shattering any illusion of consent. But the truth was far more disturbing. Alicia had been isolated from doctors, school, and peers for years. Her development stalled. Her autonomy erased. Survival came at the cost of self. Court proceedings approached, and prosecutors prepared to argue grooming began long before adulthood. Meanwhile, Alicia entered recovery, learning choice again. And that's where things got heavier. Justice would require proof. Healing would take time. And as filings mounted, one chilling realization remained. This case wasn't rare. It was invisible until it wasn't. And as the courtroom lights warmed, the world prepared to hear how easily a child can be taken without force, only trust. The outcome would test systems, laws, and vigilance. Families watched. Survivors listened. Predators waited. But what happened next would decide whether silence finally breaks, or if darkness learns new ways to hide again. While children count years stolen, birthdays missed, and promises broken, still hoping someone sees, believes, and acts before it happens again. The verdict would echo far beyond one courtroom, warning parents, platforms, and police that vigilance must never sleep again. As the case advanced, the spotlight shifted from one predator to an entire system. Court filings exposed gaps, delays, missed signals. And that's where things got darker. This wasn't just about what Edmund Davis did. It was about how long he was allowed to do it. What happened next changed everything. Investigators reconstructed the early months after Alicia left. Online warnings existed. Grooming red flags were visible. But platforms moved slowly. Jurisdictions didn't connect. And this is where the case took a turn. No single failure caused the harm. A chain of silence did. Prosecutors prepared arguments proving grooming began when Alicia was a child, not an adult making choices. They emphasized neurological vulnerability, dependence, isolation. But what they didn't know was how the defense would frame control as consent. Public debate intensified. Comment sections filled with blame, doubt, ignorance. And that's where things got darker. Survivors watched strangers dissect trauma they never lived. Behind closed doors, Alicia faced evaluations, therapy, rebuilding identity. Healing wasn't linear. Some days were progress. Others were collapse. And what happened next changed everything again. She began speaking in her own words, slowly separating loyalty from fear. Her mother, Jessica Nunez, stood through every update, every delay, every painful detail. She learned that recovery doesn't look like reunion videos. It looks like patience, boundaries, grief for time lost. As hearings approached, one truth crystallized. This case would not end with a single sentence handed down. It would ripple outward, forcing schools, parents, and platforms to confront uncomfortable realities. And the final question pressed harder than guilt or innocence. If the system failed Alicia once, what must change to ensure it never fails another child again? Because predators adapt. Silence protects them. And only relentless attention breaks the cycle before another note is left behind, promising a return that never comes. The case didn't end with handcuffs. It ended with a reckoning. When the world learned that Alicia Navarro had survived, relief came first. Then anger. Then grief. Because survival didn't mean safety. And that's where things got darker. Years were taken. Childhood was interrupted. Milestones vanished quietly. And what happened next changed everything. The story stopped being about a missing child and became a warning about how predators operate in silence, patience, and plain sight. Alicia's note promised she would return. She believed it. But what they didn't know was that belief was manufactured. Grooming doesn't steal by force. It rewires trust until escape feels impossible. Her mother waited through birthdays, holidays, unanswered prayers. That waiting leaves scars no verdict can erase. And this is where the case took a turn. Justice was no longer just punishment. It was prevention. Parents began listening closer. Platforms faced pressure. Schools talked about online safety differently. Survivors saw themselves reflected. And that mattered, because awareness saves lives. But the truth was far more disturbing. For every Alicia found, others remain unseen. Still controlled. Still convinced they chose this. Still writing promises they can't keep. This case exposed a simple, terrifying reality. A child can be taken without a scream, without a struggle, without anyone noticing, until years are gone. As proceedings continue and healing unfolds slowly, Alicia's story stands as proof of resilience and as an indictment of complacency. And the final question lingers long after the screen fades to black. If you notice changes, secrecy, sudden distance, will you dismiss it, or will you act? Because the difference between rescue and regret is often one moment of attention, one message questioned, one silence broken, and somewhere, a child is waiting for that moment right now.